All right, listen up, y'all.
Greetings, everybody. This is another episode of All Things Education Official. I'm your host and educator, Mr. Abdullah, giving you education from a black male educator's perspective. Today, I'm going to do what I call a reboot. I actually had the video ready, edited, ready to go, but I gave it to what I call my number one content critic. And she happens to be a school social worker. And she looked over the video. She said, I see where you were going, but I think it's all over the place. I think that you wouldn't be able to express exactly what it is you want parents to understand about special education and the 7 things that every parent of a special needs child must do or should know.
Special ed is intended to educate students in a way that addresses their specific needs. So what is the purpose? It should build upon and enhance a student's strengths, but also identify their weaknesses, say mathematics, and provide supports for that specific weakness to help them succeed in those areas. The history of special education was a long journey, beginning where disabled children were excluded from education and placed in institution-like schools, to now where children are protected by law. A large number of special education students feel a stigma from being labeled. Unfortunately, that label causes these students to feel shame and resent the school system in general. This label also leads teachers into the soft bigotry of low expectations. Teachers feel sorry for these students and don't expect them to be able to succeed. And wrongly so, they dumb down their teaching.
And that's what we're going to tackle today. I'm going to redo this, all because I trust her judgment in the field of social work. I trust her judgment in education. And even though I work with special needs populations and I truly enjoy it, I truly enjoy them and their families, I think that an outside view was necessary so that I wouldn't get caught up in the moment of emotionalism and trying to get these things across, because I personally felt they were important. I needed to do a little bit more research. So with that being said, I have researched another source of information that seems a little bit more central to what we're trying to do. And this comes from Apex Occupational Therapy. It's apexot.com. And the article is entitled, very simply, 7 Things Parents Should Know About Special Education. And I do recognize that the things that they're putting forth are more updated and that they are a little bit more necessary for parents to get into. So let's delve into the first one. Special education isn't what it used to be. And that is so true. It does not have the same stigma that it did in the past. Now, it does still maintain a stigma primarily in urban areas, but even that's starting to go away as special needs education students are being put into regular education classes. They're being allowed to involve themselves in the regular activities of traditional education students. Number 2, IEP stands for Individualized Education Plan or Individualized Education Program. So that's something a lot of people hear about an IEP. That student has an IEP, but they never really know what IEP stands for. And it is a legal document that is honored throughout the United States, and it clarifies how special education services are to be offered and provided. Your child cannot receive special education without it. Any changes require a meeting with the IEP team or your CST team, which stands for Child Study Team. All right, number 3, it is a team effort. It says here, an individualized education program is a team-made document. This team includes you. As a matter of fact, you are the primary individual on that team. It includes you, the classroom teacher, a special education teacher, a school representative, and any other specialist working with your child. So it can be an occupational therapist, it could be a speech therapist, could be a psychologist. These individuals work closely with you in developing the plan, also implementing the plan. But you got to remember, you as a parent are the number 1 team lead. You will be making the final calls, final decisions on what your child needs. Also, you live with the child, so there are sides of the child that you see, struggles or progresses that they do not. Number 4, you have a right to ask questions and provide input. Educators are supposed to make a jargon-free document. That means there should be language in it that you understand. Anyone could pick it up, read it, and understand what's going on. But oftentimes that doesn't happen. And since it doesn't happen, that's okay, because you as a parent have a right to not only ask the questions, what does that mean? What does that mean? You have a right to be given the answer. It couldn't be said to you, should not be said to you, oh, it's nothing. It's just something that we know. It's something we do as teachers. It's something we do as a psychologist. No, you need to explain it to me because it's going to be happening to my child. And that's very, very important. You have a right to ask questions and provide input is number 4. Number 5, a child must require specially designed instruction to have an IEP. What does that mean? According to the document, it means they have delays or a disability that keeps them from learning in the classroom with differentiated instruction, which means teaching to different levels and learning styles. They need material taught at a different pace and or with different strategies. Remember that. They are deserving of these services. They are deserving of this differentiated instruction. Once again, differentiated means teaching to different levels and learning styles. They are afforded these things, and it is up to you to make sure that it is in the plan and that they are following through. It is not your concern that they are understaffed. It is not your concern that they don't have the program. If they don't have the program, your child needs to be given those resources, maybe in another school, or those resources need to be brought in. So that is something that you, as a parent, must push for in the event that it's not provided. Number 6, children should be with typically developing peers when possible. Now, the IDEA, that stands for Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the legislation that mandates a free and appropriate public education to all children, requires that all children are in the least restrictive environment. So sometimes you have disabilities where children have to be in a self-contained room, and that's okay because they may need that one-to-one. They may need that lack of stimuli from the outside. Transitioning from classes may be difficult, and that's cool too. But once they are in the school building, even though they may have to participate in these environments, they must still be able to be given specials. Now, specials are classes that are outside of the content area. You're talking about music, art, technology, phys ed. These are specials courses. These students, no matter what their disability, need to be offered and be given the opportunity to participate. They need to have their lunch period with their peers that are in regular educational courses. They need to be able to socialize with these individuals and not be seen as something as an outcast, because they are students that have disabilities, but they are just as great as the students that are in regular education classes. So never forget that, and always ensure that your child is in the least restrictive environment as much as possible. And finally, related services need to be educationally relevant. We're talking about physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. It says here, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy are considered related services, which means they need to relate to educational participation. School is not a therapy clinic. If it's not part of the curriculum and not part of peer interactions or accessing the environment, then therapy at schools may not be appropriate. So if they're in therapy all day, that's not appropriate for a school setting because they're missing academic instruction, not to mention they are not in a least restrictive environment. They need to be pulled out regularly on a schedule, and these things need to be done for them specifically, and they are allowed to return back to the classroom setting. These are all things that you need to consider if your child is in a special education placement and has a disability. These things are so necessary for your child. And as an educator myself, I go out of my way for this population because I do recognize a lot of parents sometimes just don't give it this level of thought. And I felt it incumbent upon myself to say, no, consider these things. Your child is worth it. You're going to have some stressors. It's going to be times you're going to have to come to IEP meetings, that's individualized education program meetings. They are important for you to be there because you are the primary stakeholder. If they cannot have a meeting and a time that suits you, you have to reschedule. But be aware, if you reschedule too often, they will move forward in the best interest of the child. There are so many things that we can cover regarding special education. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free leave it in the comment. Send me an email at info@allthingseducators.com. That's info@allthingseducator.com. Or once again, direct message me or leave a message. Now, once again, I am thankful that you are here. Anybody who has any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to reach out. And this is Mr. Abdullah. This is another episode of All Things Education Official. You are dismissed.